So reaching a unicorn status is an aspiration that any fast-growing startup globally strives for. And 2020, despite being a difficult year, India created 12 new unicorns, both across B2B and B2C businesses. India's first unicorn was InMobi in 2012 with its investment from SoftBank. Since then, the pace has only gathered, and now we have 35 unicorns. The aim should be to have 100. I'm going to leave the audience and both the founders who will come on later to figure out whether we can do it in 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. It's all up to us. Clearly, the post-pandemic world is going to be very different, drastically different, as consumers and enterprise buying has changed, buying behavior has changed forever. So there'll be new winners who can anticipate the changes coming. The rules of the game are being rewritten. Clearly, digital first is a given, but there will also be new issues in the fore, like growing nationalism of countries, privacy debates that are scaling up on the current digital leaders in all continents, and most important, shifts in the underlying technology infrastructure, the telecom infrastructure like 5G, is going to give a lot more differences in power to new players. I want to welcome two amazing founders with us today, Naveen of InMobi and Glance, and Shashank, who is the co-founder of Razorpay, who will share their stories and not on just successes from what they've done, but what did not work, so that the stories can act as guideposts to other aspiring founders. As the aim at NASSCOM and NPC is to create a great ecosystem that enables us to create scale and go global. Naveen requires no introduction. Naveen is from IIT Kanpur, my institute. I'm very proud of that. And he created InMobi. And we also have Shashank, who's from IIT Roorkee, who has an amazing story. He started with creating a donation page all the way to a payment gateway, now to a neobank. And he's from Roorkee, which is a place that I have a personal interest in. We'll have a quick fireside chat. I'll ask them a few questions, and I hope we can take some audience questions to the end. So Naveen, I'm going to start with you. Congratulations on your second unicorn, and that also in record time. I think it's been less than 2 years. Tell us about the journey of Glance and the highs and lows of building this company, which is subject to today's panel. I'm sure there's a lot of sweat there, and sure you make, I know you well, so you make your own luck. That's the key. Most important is, how does this play into the new digital landscape post-pandemic?
Arun, first of all, thank you for inviting me on this. It's an absolute pleasure to be at the NPC event, albeit it is, of course, virtual. Otherwise, the energy at NPC every year is just, electric, and, it's something that every entrepreneur looks forward to, because before you become an entrepreneur, you end up being at the NPC for some reason or the other. So first of all, again, I just want to thank you for inviting me here. The story of Glance has been very interesting for us, but I don't want it to, I want to make sure that people understand that to us, it had become a process, as against it becoming like, a eureka moment or anything of that sort. And I feel, I know it's the only, one more out of the stable that's come, only the first one that's come out of the stable of InMobi. But I think the process that we followed is far more important and critical than the outcome. And to us, a few years ago, I think we ended up simplifying our lives a lot and started to do things which were, far more simpler. And what I mean by doing things far more simpler was we realized that, we want to focus on innovation as a very important theme within the company. Now, innovation just does not mean that you're trying to do innovation in new areas, product innovation in new areas. It actually means doing product innovation in the core areas of your work, right? And so I would argue that, we did a lot more innovation in the core business of ours, the core InMobi business, which is doing phenomenally well right now. But as part of that innovation work came out something which over a period of time, because we nurtured it, slowly and, simply, it has now become what Glance is. And, to put it more simply, Glance, we started to imagine a world where consumer experience can actually be totally different if it is on the lock screen. And we realized that the consumer experience may be a little broken today and less efficient, because we all have to enter our phones and actually go and hit an app so many times during a day. And therefore, if there is a new world for us to imagine where artificial intelligence can drive an experience on the phone at the top of the phone, which can actually take all the inputs that we've given them and gives a content experience from all over the world, maybe there is an interesting way to change the experience. Now this is this thesis and this thought is little more out there than what we were trying to do within InMobi, and therefore we pulled it out and continue to work on this till we got a product market fit, which is very important because I think it's critical that we get the product market fit. People love the product, and then you start to think about scaling it. And I think that's why I said we simplified our lives and we have made the process a lot more simple in our own heads to focus on simple things. For example, as we brought about this process, we never built a large team around it. For the longest period of time, it was one of my co-founders and 10 people who worked on this, and you were aware of that process during the time. Yeah, and look, the reality of life is innovation is done in small teams, not in large teams. And so this whole, if you really wanted to do the next generation work in the world out there and impact global scale, you need to essentially be able to build things which are built by a handful of engineers and product guys and designers, and then scale it, and then watch for it to scale. And then of course during scaling you can add more people. But I think it's important that, and that's why I keep going back, that to us it was a simple process of experimentation and failures, and then see what results come out. And when the results start to show you of course double, triple down on that.
Thank you. Shashank, congratulations to Harshil and you for having created one of India's fastest growing unicorns. But you're building in a crowded market where established players are there. Amazing to hear how you started, as I said, with the donations platform to Razorpay, and now you're a neobank. There are also massive changes in regulations coming with new platforms like UPI in India, which are removing the friction that existed in payments. Tell us how you've sweated this over the years and differentiated and plan to scale your organization, starting with India today, of course, and leading to some global plans, which I'm pretty sure are there.
Thanks, Arun, and thanks for inviting me to NASSCOM Product Conclave. It's actually great to be back here. We have kind of attended the event every year. It's been truly amazing in the physical sphere, and I think we had attended the event back in 2017 when we were one of the top 10 startups in NASSCOM as well. So very fond memories of the event for sure. And yeah, I hope, the way we started, right? I think the whole journey has been really truly phenomenal from us. I don't think at any point we thought that we're kind of going to achieve the unicorn status in 5 years or 6 years, right? So back then, I think I graduated in 2012 from IIT Roorkee, and my co-founder graduated in 2013, and I was working in Microsoft in US for a couple of years. So the job in Microsoft is actually pretty good. It's a very good company, decent culture, and the good work. But I think my heart was not there in the job and in US, right? So I want to do something which has more impact and also gets me faster growth as well, right? And gets me talking to more people instead of just writing code. And that's where I collaborated with my co-founder Harshil, who was still in college that time, to sort of work on a side project, some side project that is there. And we were trying to build a donation platform to kind of galvanize, a donation culture in the white collar industry in India, which I think to this day is not as prevalent as it should be, right? But as part of doing that is, and we just put something together and put it out on the internet. And as part of doing that, when we went to accept payments, I think that was a very painful part that we discovered that, to accept payments, there's no good solutions that are focused towards SMEs, new age startups. And with internet and mobile penetration going to be increasing significantly, and this was back in 2014-15, we knew that, internet and mobile are going to be huge in the country. And startups are going to play a massive role in the country's ecosystem. That is where we felt that, it's a significant opportunity and something that, we're kind of well suited to solve for, because at least in our naivety at that point of time, we thought that, of course, engineers should be the ones building this. But what we didn't know, and I think that naivety is a blessing also in some sense, is that the reason most engineers don't build stuff like payment gateways, because the barrier to entry is pretty high. There's a lot of complexity, compliance, and banking arrangements and regulations that you need to think it through. That is there, right? And when we had started, we went to talking to bankers to understand, can we get a payment gateway license in our hometowns and in other places, and that was a massive effort. I mean, we talked to more than 100 bankers to understand if we can get a payment gateway license, right? And at the end of that whole 3 to 4 months of effort, we had like one banker coming to us and saying, okay, I mean, we can try out something that is there. So it was a very enriching experience, even as a 23-year-old, to kind of try and start your own business. I would say that whenever you're thinking of doing a startup, I think ultimately the problem that you're trying to solve is the most important thing, and whether you're building something of value. Beyond that, most of the stuff that is there, whether talking to others, figuring out hiring and fundraising, all of these things are something which comes over time. But the key thing that has been really critical for us, especially in the early days and continuing to this day, is it's kind of the focus that you keep towards solving for customer problems and solving for growth that is there. As long as you're solving for those customer problems, a lot of these things get taken care of. But that's how we started, and that's how we kind of pivoted from building a donation platform to building a payment gateway that is there, right? And over the years, we have been on our own journey. I'm very thankful to the ecosystem that we have been able to work with a lot of startups in the industry, a lot of helping a lot of SMEs in their digitization journey. First during demonetization, we saw that acceleration, and then again during the pandemic, we are seeing a lot more SMEs coming online and trying to digitize their businesses, and we have been trying to help them in every step of the way. That is there, and I think as part of that whole journey is what has kind of enabled us to thankfully reach the unicorn milestone as well.
Wonderful. No, that's amazing. So Naveen, I know this is going to be one question that you're going to like. One of the few things I learned in IIT. I mean, I studied there. I can't say I was a great student, but I found the difference between what is necessary and what is sufficient. In tech startups, is building just a tech is good enough, or is the team more important? And at what stage, what flips over? I think you're a big believer in culture. So what really contributes to making these unicorns? Is just tech, or the culture, or combination? Love to hear you, and then after you, something from Shashank on that.
Yeah, look, it's a very important point. I think, I say this very openly and, very a firm belief that if you want to create something meaningful long-term, the team, the culture, the people is very important. And there is no right culture, by the way, but there is a culture which keeps a cohort of people together because they believe in this. It's like family, right? My family may be different from someone else's family. I am no one to say that my culture of my family is better than someone else's. But as long as my culture keeps my family together, then that works for me. Those beliefs and those rituals work for me. The same is true for any company. Everybody should try and figure out, what are your cultures and beliefs and rituals, and because if you don't have that, what will happen is that you will have people coming in and going out, transient nature. Now, great products, great companies are not built based on strategies only, because strategies change with time. It is built because there is someone who you can trust, someone who believes in the broader vision of what one is going after, and is willing to fight it out, especially when the going gets tough. I think what really is required in today's environment, in frankly any environment, is entrepreneurs or CEOs focusing on making sure that they have built the right culture. Because once you have done that, you will keep a team together that would stay for a very long period of time. So, for example, we are able to do what we are able to do not because we have great ideas or strategies or what have you, but because for example, my own leadership team has been with us, and and I call this not just the top management, but like the broader leadership team of, like, say, the top 75 100 people. The top 100 people in the company have been with us for 80% of them have been with us for at least 7 to 8 years and more. And we are
really important, really important.
And that it allows us to essentially go and look at somebody and say, hey, do you want to do this and make this happen? And the person will do it because you know the strengths and the weaknesses of the person, and vice versa. They know our strengths and weaknesses. So therefore, you require a system to be able to do this. Now, I think where this gets very confusing is because this conversation is not a boardroom conversation. Investor is not going to come in and talk to you about a culture. Now, is that right or wrong? Who cares? If you as a CEO and an entrepreneur understand that, look, to be able to build a company of small size to a large size, the most important piece is a culture which attracts a set of people that you want to get attracted, you want to attract. Please go ahead and build that. And to me, that's the most necessary condition and the necessary element for any successful enterprise. And we have seen a lot of such things in India in the last several years, where people actually rely too heavily on capital as the primary source of success. Now, of course, there is nothing that goes to say that capital is not required. It is absolutely a must. But in a lot of the examples that you would see, if the culture piece is missing, capital does not really solve for it, and people end up paying extra capital, a lot of salaries, a lot of high compensation, but you see a turnaround, like people basically switching in and out, leadership switching in and out between 1 to 2 years, and nobody's staying. So who is building? Who is doing the work? And if that thing is not understood, what really happens if you go forward and take this cycle of companies which are very well capitalized and using money as a way to bait people in, if the first batch of good people leave you, the next batch which is going to come in is going to be tier 2. Because the tier 1 is talking to the tier 1, is not coming back in.
Yeah.
And the tier 2 comes in. If the tier 2, kind of spirals out and goes away in a couple of years, tier 1 is not coming back, irrespective of what the money you want to pay. Tier 3 is coming back. So your whole aspiration of even thinking about building something even remotely bigger actually is asymptotically going down, not up. And then you're raising capital and capital and capital. But this is like chalk and cheese now. It reaches a stage of chalk and cheese. So, and it's an important, like personally for us as a company, this is the point where it all matters. Now, today we have done something, tomorrow we'll do a lot more, but this is what really matters to us.
Yeah, and when you look at it on one side, at one point in InMobi, you were competing with Google, and now they're your investor. This is a crazy world being built up out there. So, Shashank, what do you have to say on this one? Because you're only on your first unicorn. So you're going to help us get to the 100.
No, absolutely. So I think as you mentioned, right? I mean, having a technology chops or background or whatever, that kind of technical orientation, right? I think it's a necessary condition, but it's not a sufficient condition at all, right? And when we started, right, we were very thoughtful about the people whom we wanted to get into the companies, especially in the initial days, right? Because that kind of sets your culture. The founders and the first 15, 20 employees kind of set the culture for the years to come, and have an outsized influence, right? So you also want to hire people who are really, can do whatever the company needs, right? And you can always go back to them and rely upon them, right? And I think we were really fortunate that in the initial days we were able to hire such folks who are really truly generalists in that sense, right? And who trust us a lot, and we are able to trust them with anything and everything. And that kind of created a very good culture for us to this date. And I think over the years, one thing that I have realized is that as founders, you have to consciously invest in building a thoughtful culture inside the company as well. Because once that element deteriorates, right? Once it goes bad, it's very, very difficult to bring it back to a level that it's truly well designed and functioning for the company, right? And culture is a lever which gives outsized returns in every sense of the word, right? And are with us, and we think that they are going to be with us for a very long time to come. That is there because they also grow with the organization, and the organization is able to grow because of their contributions to a large extent. That is there, right? And I think what I've seen, most startups and founders, at least in the early days, do not understand the importance of this, and because of that, then a lot of other problems kind of crop up over time.
But don't blame the founders. You were in survival mode in the first year. You don't have to.
No, but I think even in that scenario, right? Even if you are in survival mode, at least the basic compass that I have to do right by the people, right? And I need the right people with me who will be, you need warriors to build a startup, right? You don't need people, who are fine with a cushy life, right? You need warriors, you need missionaries in a way, right? And if you don't recruit those people, then the survival, of course you will be in survival mode, but then you have to keep thinking, right? I mean, how you'll come out on top eventually, right? So that kind of is where I was coming from.
No, that's wonderful. But we are in the last 2-3 minutes. So Naveen, what is the 1 or 2 pieces of quick advice you want to give founders who are aspiring to be like you and to like Shashank?
Look, I think there are a few things that are very critical that we at least found. I think one is, as we think about building companies in India today and globally, I think gone are the days, and it's not even a surprise anymore, gone are the days when companies which were being built without regards to the unit economics of the business. And it's a very simple point. But I think all the companies in the past that were created with certain level of discipline. And I think that level of discipline on unit economics is very important. And the reason why that's important is because if you don't have that level of control on your own business, no one else is going to come in and save you. You have to save yourself. So you've got to get a business which is built on strong unit economics. Secondly, you also have to make sure that your business is built there is no need for building a blitz scaling business. This whole notion that you must get out in the first over and start hitting sixes as if it's a T20 game. It's actually not a T20 game. It's a test match. Yeah. And there is no marks for you to hit sixes in the first opening session, because who cares? Because if you're not going to be around towards the 5th day to win the test match, it is as good as few people clapping for you, and which is what happens today, because there are a lot of people who end up clapping because you're coming out and you're doing this blitz scale. The unit economics is not in place, and this is all about discipline in my view. I think the second big point is around product market fit, and I think you cannot buy your way into product market fit. So capital and product market fit are two independent things, and what better forum to talk about this than NPC, right? Because it is a product conclave. So it is about building the right product. Until you get the product market fit, you cannot go so the questions to be asked is, what's your NPS score? For example, I know for a fact that Shashank's company Razorpay has a very high NPS score, and so it's whether he tracks it or not doesn't matter. But as long as it's a high NPS score, it's a great company to build. So you have to figure out how you're building. You have a great product market fit, and then you can scale it as much as you want. So that becomes the second big element. I think the third big element from an advice point of view would be, as entrepreneurs, we are surrounded a bit too much by investors. And we got to surround ourselves a lot more by operators, because none of us are building a very complex business. It's not like we are trying to send something to the moon or anything. We're building simple businesses which require a lot of common sense and has issues and problems that we all face. But those issues and problems that we all face will need, have solutions. And those solutions will be given to us by people who have operated and built businesses in the past. And unfortunately, in our country, we don't have a large number of investors who have done that, right? So, but unfortunately, also as entrepreneurs, you spend a lot more time with investors. So it's nothing against the investors. I think it's a choice that the entrepreneurs have to start making, to say, look, how do I surround myself with people who can help me get the right advice, and therefore advice, and that, because in the early days of the business, if you make these wrong decisions, some of these wrong decisions, which, you don't have the, as an entrepreneur, because you're young and you're trying to essentially build a business, you don't know what's the right thing to do. Like, there's no one there to tell you, like, don't make this decision, make this decision, and this is the right one. And you don't have the confidence, or you get overpowered. So you need the right balance of people around you. And the last point I would mention would be the one that you talked about just prior to this, which is, no one will ask you to focus on culture. No one will tell you to focus on the culture, but you got to realize that that's the only piece that will make you successful over a long period of time, frankly, even a short period of time. So you really need that culture and your investment from your side to be able to do that.
Thank you, Naveen. Good luck for the IPO. Hopefully, will be next year. So we hope to that. And Shashank, we have a few minutes left. So any thoughts you have for founders on top of what Naveen has said?
So I think adding on to what Naveen said, right? For most founders, I think the few most important elements are, right, like the top, which is there, that keeping focus on customers. There needs to be an extreme amount of focus on what the customers truly want, and whether whatever you're building is something that is useful for them or not. You're not building a cool technology or a cool product, right? You're building something that the customers need to use, right? Second is, you always need to think about the people that you are with, right? You need to do right by the employees, but also you need to ensure that you're hiring the best employees possible for the journey that you are undertaking. Third, as Naveen said, having good advisors, I think, is extremely important, right? There's a lack of quality advisors. I would say also the ecosystem is way more investor oriented, but if you are able to get good advisors even in the early stage, I think it will help you prevent a lot of mistakes that most early stage entrepreneurs do by default, not due to any mistake of their own, but it's just general lack of knowledge. And I think last I would say is which in general I would like to see more and more of, is founders being extremely resourceful and extremely ambitious, right? And not being ashamed about it. We need people in India, who don't just go by the jugaad mentality, but who truly want to build something world quality, right? And do it in a way that has good unit economics, but also want to take it to the world, or take it to the masses, and deliver a lot of impact in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Shashank. I think on this happy note, I'd like to thank both of you for giving your advice. We don't have time for more questions. As they come in, we'll send to you, and I'm pretty sure each of you will be willing to come back to each another. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
This wonderful.
Absolutely.
And the last question before you go, one answer: when do we get 100 unicorns? Any bets?
I think 2023.
No worry. So great. Many thanks. And over to you, Justin. I think we've had a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you for inviting.